Part 25. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 241. Lu Chang'an went back and took the phone over. Mobile phones with fast charging technology charge very quickly. Lu Chang'an turned on the mobile phone and walked into the coffin instead of placing the mobile phone on the coffin as before. He didn't believe that Shang Guandandan could still play with his phone while he was holding it. Using known natural principles, Lu Chang'an could not explain how Shang Guandandan did it, but there were too many things that could not be explained by known scientific knowledge, and he himself was such an example. It's unexplainable and there's nothing surprising about it. Lu Chang'an shook his phone and said, "Okay, can you tell me now? After telling me, I will return the phone to you." Shang Guandandan said nothing again. "Do you regret it?" Lu Chang'an opened the novel she was reading and exclaimed in sudden realization, "Oh, I asked you why you were so talkative just now. It turns out that you were reading this chapter before the climax, and it just happened to be interrupted. Tisk, this feeling is very uncomfortable." "Shut up." Shang Guandandan's voice was full of angry majesty. Although the girl's voice was immature and lacked a sense of depth, his unbridled words were not the first time Shang Guandandan had experienced this. It reminded her of her rage against him back then. "No, I just want to tell you that once desires arise, they will accumulate involuntarily. You can no longer keep your mind calm, and you will have more and more emotions. The current method to solve and release these emotions is in your subconscious, just reading novels and stories. Sooner or later you will compromise with me and exchange the information I need for what you need, so why should we waste time? Let's be mutually beneficial." Lu Chang'an patted the coffin, and at this time he had a feeling of patting Shang Guandandan. Shoulder feeling. "Do you still remember the more than 1,000 crimes for which you were deposed as emperor? If you want to accuse someone, why bother? I've only been emperor for a few days. Have I been busy committing crimes all day long?" Lu Chang'an sneered. "You robbed my pony carriage, am I wronged by you?" Shangwen's dull voice was still full of anger, and still had the cadence of the woman with the highest position in the empire. Lu Chang'an opened his mouth. Shang Guandandan had a royal carriage, which she used when she played in the palace garden. The horse she used was a dismounted horse. The horse was only 3 feet tall and very cute. She pulled Shang Guandandan on it. Running bumpily in the garden is one of her favorite treasures. The most powerful girl in the empire, even if the emperor did this, it was an act of disobedience to her. This crime is clear and clear. It is one of the major reasons that made me determined to destroy you. How could I have wronged you? After playing with it, why don't I give it back to you?" Lu Chang'an dared to admit, "I played with your little carriage, and more than 2,000 years later, you are still saying that you are really petty. This incident is recorded in the history books. Anyway, you played with my pony and now you're going to give me that baby. I'll give it to you. I just want to know how you use your phone. You have to understand that this baby will need to be repaired after a while, and you have to trouble me. You tell me how to use it, and you want me to help you in the future. It's my obligation to repair it." Lu Chang'an decided that as long as she agreed, he would bring her a power strip and give her the mobile phone charger and data cable. Shang Guandandan was silent again. Lu Chang'an waited patiently. "The coffin is also a treasure. Is this the answer? You don't have to say that." Lu Chang'an knew very well that this coffin was a Pokemon with alien technology. Although he had clearly remembered every texture and drawing on the coffin, Lu Chang'an still looked at it again. A striped dragon swung its tail. Lu Chang'an looked at it intently, and was slightly surprised when he saw another golden crow spreading its wings. The emperor's snake tail rolled up the clouds. The toad stretched out its legs and jumped. The monster with the head of an ox and the body of a unicorn stood up. The pattern on the coffin cover was in a trance like an animation. After a moment, the entire center of the coffin cover became transparent, as if it was inlaid with a thin and transparent crystal. Lu Chang'an saw Shang Guandandan in the coffin. She looked at Lu Chang'an, her eyes immediately closed tightly, and her fair cheeks were stained with a faint blush. Lu Chang'an thought of Song Yu's ode to the goddess and Caog's ode to the goddess of Luo. The most beautiful thing in life is the first meeting. When I saw Shang Guandandan for the first time, I was once amazed. The high-ranking empress of the empire, the girl who was about to become his mother, turned out to be like a solitary and bright red plum in the vast snow field. If it is jade, it is Xi. The hair is like clouds, and it is disdainful of the hair. The jade is like the hair, the elephant is like the hair, and the hair is fair. Who ran Tian yet? Emperor who ran? Its exhibition also. Menbai's crepe is also a crepe. The sun's clear and airy appearance is also reflected in his elegant appearance. The person who is like this is the beauty of the country. This song "Gentlemen Grow Old Together" is certainly not suitable to describe Shang Guandandan, but there is nothing wrong with the description in these two paragraphs. She is the real Bang Ziwen. The transparency of the coffin cover quickly returned to its original state. Lu Chang'an came back to his senses and reached out to knock on the cover. The cold touch of bronze was still there. Lu Chang'an lowered his head and glanced at the position of Shang Guandandan's head and face. He was not sure whether she could still see him under the opaque bronze coffin lid at this moment. Lu Chang'an put his hand on the coffin, but he couldn't help but touch it here and there, from one end of the coffin to the other. It was so amazing. This is a situation that is completely unexplainable in the field of known natural science. This is not a TV set embedded in the bathroom mirror. It is usually a natural mirror that turns into a video player when it is powered on. Stop touching. After a while, Lu Chang'an still didn't stop, and Shang Guandandan couldn't bear it anymore. Lu Chang'an stopped touching and placed the phone on the coffin cover. There was no doubt that the coffin cover could not only become transparent, but also allow Shang Guandandan to operate the phone through the coffin cover. Awesome, awesome. What is the principle of this? Is it future technology or alien technology? How long Lu Chang'an lives? There is no way to find out the principle of this kind of thing from memory and experience. Shang Guandandan ignored him. Lu Chang'an felt that she had already started reading novels. The app has conversion between simplified and traditional Chinese. Xiaozuan and official script were popular in the Han Dynasty. As a student of Xia House Hung, Shang Guandandan's language talent is undoubted. In addition, Lu Chang'an's paragraph times lectures had a lot of influence on her. After all, Lu Chang'an's lectures were originally intended to help her leave the coffin and adapt to modern life one day. Language and writing were naturally the basic lecture content. But now it seems that Shang Guandandan has no expectations of leaving the coffin. She has not eaten or drank all day, and it has no impact at all. Lu Chang'an's understanding of this coffin did not deepen. On the contrary, he became more curious and had more questions. But just one question required giving away a mobile phone. If Lu Chang'an continued to ask questions one by one, how much would he have to bribe her? 88. Probably to avoid embarrassment, Shang Guandandan didn't say anything else except about the pony carriage. Lu Chang'an's mentality is still neither impatient nor impatient. Even if Shang Guandandan has to wait in the coffin for 2,000 years, he can slowly wait with her. Or if human technology breaks through the upper limit in 2,000 years, this will happen in daily life. The coffin is ready for use. Lu Chang'an even wondered whether the coffin shape of the coffin was a disguise. When it appeared in Shang Guandandan's era, the appearance of the bronze coffin seemed to be more integrated with the times, and its transparent top lid just now reminded Lu Chang'an of the life support capsule in science fiction movies, hibernation pod kind of thing. There is some truth to this speculation, but what is mysterious is that it can also absorb vitality and blood, attract thunder and lightning, and according to Li Hongfang, there are also visions that fill the world. Something that combines science fiction and magic. Thinking about it carefully, if I had a coffin like this, it would be pretty good to lie in it all day long. Of course, that was only what he was willing to do when the Earth's life state had not yet given birth to civilization. In recent years, human civilization has finally been born on the Earth, an existence that can accompany him, and there are many things that interest him. When Lu Chang'an left the carriage, it was already the bright morning light. Looking up, the veins of the sycamore leaves were like the texture of jade in the sunlight. Lu Chang'an took the olives from the jar, fried the shredded pork, beat an egg, and made a simple clear noodle soup. He brought it to the carriage and asked Chang Guandandan if he wanted to eat, but she naturally ignored it. Lu Chang'an was very confused. Even if she could survive without eating, enjoying food had nothing to do with survival. Didn't her mouth have the physiological memory of the wonderful food blooming with various flavors? Forget it, he loves to eat. When Lu Chang'an saw Zhou Dongdong jumping up and down, he ran down to feed the loach and gave her a few mouthfuls of shredded pork and egg yolk. In the morning, the postal service came to deliver letters. Lu Chang'an received several postcards and letters. They were sent by Gao Duai from Jiangan University. There were several from Sakura Avenue, Lazaishi, the library, Yingding, etc. There were some poetic messages written on the postcard, and Lu Chang'an smiled. It felt like he hadn't received such a postcard in 20 years. Nowadays, the most common places where postcards are sold are probably in some small and fresh tourist towns and ancient cities. Those with ordinary appearance. Tong, a female shopkeeper who is dressed very artistically and looks like she has spent her time in peace, runs a shop selling postcards or handicraft notebooks, and provides some girls with similar styles and temperaments with the service of mailing postcards to themselves after a certain number of years. From the past, the postcards written by myself have a slightly magical feeling of traveling through time, which is very attractive to some girls. There was only one letter left, and Lu Chang'an naturally thought it was written by Gao Duai. He was about to tear open the envelope when he saw the sender on the cover was Ziking. Ziking is Qin Peng. I've eaten too much, my stomach is very uncomfortable, and my head still hurts, so I can't break out today. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 242. It was not easy for Qin Peng to be able to write in straight and steady handwriting at his age. Lu Chang'an paused for a moment, but still quickly tore open the envelope. The letter is very long, and the edges of the paper are slightly rolled up. The handwriting is not all written in one go. There are doodles and corrections, there are many circles and crosses, and the wording has been changed frequently. Many of the calligraphy works that have been handed down are mostly like this, which is different from the image of calligraphy works in many modern people's minds. They are not a piece of white paper with ink splashed on it, and a few clean words can be written in one go. Just like Yan Zhenking's works that are second to none in the world. Lu Chang'an read it from the beginning with a smile. I am afraid that in the future, the incidence of receiving letters from old people will become less and less, and it is normal for them to even disappear. In history, there are always countless traditions that rise and then die. Qin Peng wrote a poem, reminiscing about the time when he heard about his fate, and then talked about how he had been looking for Yechinayu over the years. Finally, he lamented that people still have peach blossoms, and invited Lu Chang'an to visit the Qin family's old house. This will probably be the last meeting. Lu Chang'an thought that it must be something about Qin Yan'an during the summer vacation that made Qin Peng feel that it was necessary to meet with Lu Chang'an to clarify some things. Unlike the invitations from the third wife and others, these people invited him, but Lu Chang'an didn't bother to pay attention. If they wanted to see him, they had to come by themselves, but Lu Chang'an would not do this to Qin Peng. Even if Qin Peng is on the other side of the Pacific and he needs to swim across, Lu Chang'an won't mind. He has never been aloof and indifferent to the children he raised and cared for. Lu Chang'an has more patience and consideration for them. Maybe decades later, in many years to come, Lu Chang'an will also forget Qin Peng, but since he still remembers it, he will naturally feel sympathy, just like the reason why he is willing to let Li Hongfang go when he thinks of Li Daoren. Lu Chang'an collected the letter and put the postcard in the rattan box under the bed. He then took off his vest and pants and put on a clean and tidy but slightly old cotton shirt, black trousers and cloth shoes. The shirt was not tucked into the trousers, and the neatly folded sleeves were rolled up. Lu Chang'an came to the carriage. Dan, I have to go out and probably won't be back until tomorrow. Well, maybe I'll be back in the evening. Shang Guandandan remained silent, but Lu Chang'an found that the mobile phone was not placed on the coffin lid. He didn't know the reason, but he didn't find it strange. How did you fall into the hands of others, and what kind of state were you under supervision before you were sent to me? When he didn't get an answer, Lu Chang'an didn't take it seriously. He locked the carriage door and slowly walked out of the community. He knew that it was absolutely impossible to say that the surveillance on him ceased to exist at all. Lu Chang'an very much suspected that several seemingly hidden cameras near the street at the entrance of the community were used to monitor him, but since he had drawn up his own territory, as long as other people's cameras are not installed in areas within the surveillance community, Lu Chang'an will ignore them. After seeing the magic of the coffin and Shang Guandandan's control over the coffin after waking up, Lu Chang'an was not worried that someone could steal the coffin casually, unless it was her own will. Lu Chang'an brought his ID card, bought a high-speed rail ticket with his mobile phone, and then took the subway to the South High-Speed Rail Station to catch the train. This trip is much more luxurious than the last time I went to Taiwan. I still made a lot of money during this summer vacation. Although I had to save money to open a store, the rice noodles sold well, and Lu Chang'an was not the kind of person who would hold the door open just to save money and be reluctant to spend it. Juncha Metro currently has 2 lines in operation. The southern terminus of Line 2 is a convention and exhibition center. Lu Chang'an went there to see the station. The penultimate station is Juncha South Station. There are usually no seats on the subway station in the city center, but it is not crowded. Lu Chang'an stood in the corner and looked at many men and women carrying luggage. The summer vacation was almost over, and there were quite a lot of college students rushing to school. It's not cooked yet, you can tell by the way it looks tender. Lu Chang'an recalled the time when Qin Peng and Ye Sijin were studying. When we meet this time, we may talk and reminisce about the past. We may not talk about the past, but only about the future. The focus may be on Qin Yinan's affairs. It should also be Qin Yinan's business. Otherwise, according to Qin Peng's temperament, or some of the agreements made back then, Qin Peng's death should not be long before we meet again. Now it feels like Qin Peng can live for several years without a problem. Lu Chang'an got off at the high-speed rail station and walked to the East Square to enter the station. There were fewer people here. Lu Chang'an looked up at the span of the station's dome and couldn't help but think of the terracotta warriors and horses pit in the mausoleum of the first emperor. During the construction, the technology and materials were not up to par. The construction of the exhibition hall was very conservative. When he has time, he should take Guandandan to visit modern Chang'an, but if she stays in the coffin all the time, it will be inconvenient to take her there. He can't carry the coffin. Look at the bronze coffin. Breathing, Lu Chang'an carried her to the street. She might have been reported by enthusiastic people, and then had to hand her over to the state. Lu Chang'an was thinking about all this, and found that there was a business seat lounge in the station, but he did not have the luxury of buying a business seat, so he sat quietly on the rows of iron chairs in the waiting hall. There are various restaurants on both sides of the waiting room. Now fewer and fewer people eat instant noodles. Even some stations no longer sell instant noodles. Lu Chang'an wasn't hungry either. He just felt that being able to carry a bowl of instant noodles with ham and braised eggs on the train was one of the most satisfying enjoyments during the journey. People always have feelings, and there is nothing wrong with feelings. Special class seat, First class seat, second class seat. Lu Chang'an was in a second class seat. He just sat in his seat after getting on the bus. He brought neither a data cable nor a power bank. Of course, he had to save power for his mobile phone. There was another row in front of him with his back to him. Passengers are not as interesting as the two rows of passengers facing each other on the green train, so naturally they won't see the happy couple like last time, and there's nothing interesting to watch. Lu Chang'an arrived at his destination in the afternoon. After leaving the station, he went straight to the Qin family's old house. More than 100 years ago, the Qin family and the Ye family were both aristocratic families here. The Ye family had already lost their wealth to prodigal sons during the war. The eldest son was the direct descendant of the family. By the time Ye Chinayu and Ye Sijin arrived, they were already dead. Some branches were not so prodigal. They had gone through ups and downs, and some had developed well, leaving and then coming back. As for the situation of the Qin family, it is a bit more complicated. When Qin Peng started the revolution, the Qin family did not support it. Qin Peng's leaving home was actually no different from being kicked out of the family. However, after the victory of the Liberation War, the Qin family could not help but hold on to some thoughts. Qin Peng is also a high official, right? You have to take care of the Qin family, right? Without care, the land will still be confiscated and subjected to transformation. The continuous houses of the Qin family were also distributed to the local people. Only the courtyard where Qin Peng lived as a child became the former residence of Qin Peng. When Qin Peng came back to spend his old age, the former residence of Qin Peng the plaque was taken off and returned to him. Lu Chang'an looked left and right and walked around the house several times. Except for the house itself, everything around it had lost its appearance. The old houses that originally belonged to the Qin family were mostly destroyed and very few were left. Some were replaced. The buildings are also old, and some of the locations that are being demolished must have very generous compensation. I wonder if they will be grateful to the Qin family back then. What are you doing here? Although Qin Peng's former residence has inevitably become one of the patriotic education bases for primary and secondary school students in the local area, there are many people who come to hang out and watch, but now that Qin Peng has returned, this house has not allowed idlers to wait for many years. After entering the tour, people like Lu Chang'an who are wandering around have some suspicious behavior and deserve to be questioned. After all, there cannot be any negligence on the safety of the only remaining old revolutionaries. If something happens, the local leaders will be in fear and have trouble sleeping and eating. Looking for my brother, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. How old is the kid? Lu Chang'an exuded the feeling of an intellectual youth out of time just because of his clothes, and he didn't look like a bad guy. The plainclothes guard asked casually. It was difficult for Lu Chang'an to answer this question, but he could also see that the guard had a gun on his waist and must be someone who could help him pass the message. Lu Chang'an took out the letter and did not intend to find a corner to climb over the wall and enter the hospital. When you can walk in openly, you are dignified, but if you have to climb over the wall or even dig a hole, Lu Chang'an actually doesn't mind. The plainclothes guard still recognized Qin Peng's font, not to mention Qin Peng's name and seal on it. Regardless of what Lu Chang'an said about looking for his younger brother, he remained vigilant and politely invited Lu Chang'an to a small room in the house. Waiting in the room. This small room used to be a resting place for the concierge. Lu Chang'an still remembered it. He could feel the eyes of people walking past the door, as well as the surveillance of the cameras in the room. After a while, an old secretary with some silver threads in his hair appeared. He looked like a man and invited Lu Chang'an in. Is there no need for security checks, such as body searches, security gates, etc.? Lu Chang'an asked a little confused. The old secretary was stunned for a moment. This question was too suspicious. After hesitating for a moment, Lu Chang'an obviously had no intention of being searched and walked past him. Lu Chang'an was familiar with Lu Chang'an when he entered the courtyard these days, and Qin Peng probably still stayed in the courtyard where he was a boy. Wait a minute. Even though Qin Peng had already given the order, the old secretary still couldn't help but worry, because Qin Peng's safety was too important. At this age and at this age, every hair and pore on his body, everyone is worried. Lu Chang'an ignored it. He had already walked to the innermost courtyard. In the courtyard with whirling bamboo shadows, an old man with white hair and good spirits was sitting on a rocking chair. He looked directly at the door and saw him walking in. Lu Chang'an. Even the other person's voice and appearance were no longer similar to that vague memory, but suddenly his heart was surging. As soon as Qin Peng's hand pressed down on the rocking chair, the old secretary hurried over to help him. Qin Peng waved his hand to signal him to leave. Lu Chang'an walked over and hugged Qin Peng's skinny body. Elder brother. After shouting, Qin Peng looked at the young man in front of him with tears streaming down his face. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 243. Morning bacteria don't know Huishuo, worms don't know spring and autumn. Life seems very short, but compared with the mushrooms that live and die, it is very long. Even compared to the cricket, which can only experience one summer, it is a very, very long time. When Lu Chang'an saw Qin Peng, he would feel that he had lived long enough, but most of the time, he would have another way of measuring time. If billions of years are converted into years as units, the Big Bang occurred 130 years ago, the earliest stars and the Milky Way appeared about 120 years ago, the Sun and the Solar System appeared 40 or 50 years ago, and the earliest living organisms appeared 10 years ago, the dinosaurs became extinct about 7 or 8 months ago, the so-called evolution of Homo sapiens in Africa happened 8 or 9 hours ago, the earliest agricultural boom occurred 50 minutes ago, and the first recorded city appeared half an hour ago. In the past, the modern industrial revolution happened 1 minute ago, and the First World War happened about 20 seconds ago. As for all subsequent world events, they were just what happened in the last 10 seconds. Lu Chang'an and Qin Peng disappeared for only a few seconds. But Qin Peng has grown old, and not everyone's time measurement unit is the same as Lu Chang'an's. For ordinary people, changing the time measurement unit does not make much sense. Lu Chang'an looked at Qin Peng. His hair was already sparse and silvery white, and was neatly combed to adhere to his scalp. However, the age spots on his scalp could be seen directly from between the hair strands. His skin was not too dry and lifeless. There were only thin muscles clinging to the bones, and there was a twilight aura in his eyes that had accumulated too much vicissitudes of life. However, he straightened his body and was not dominated by the fear of approaching death. There was still a strong spirit in his spirit. Lu Chang'an held his thin palm and smiled. It's been more than 70 years. Qin Peng still remembered clearly, patting Lu Chang'an's arm heavily with his other hand. You can do it, you can do it, you. Lu Chang'an didn't explain anything and gently stroked Qin Peng's back to calm his breathing. Come on. Qin Peng wiped his turbid tears, grabbed Lu Chang'an's hand tightly, and pulled him towards the study. Qin Peng likes camellias. It is said that the old camellias in this yard are from the early 20th century. They were cut and planted, and the roots are intertwined. It is unclear whether they were planted later or the old roots have branched out. Spreading in the courtyard behind the patio. Qin Peng's study was behind the camellia garden, and Lu Chang'an saw a word written on the wall. Camellia is covered with snow and flourishes, with the bones of pines and cypresses, holding the posture of peaches and plums. Moreover, there are many kinds, ranging from light red to deep red, and all of them are prepared. It is shallow, like powder and fat, like the cheeks of a beautiful woman, like the face of a drunkard, but it is deep. This is a passage from Leisure and Love. In the past, there didn't seem to be so many camellias in the Chin family's yard. It was just a little bit, and it couldn't be used as a garden. However, Yesijin had raised some camellias but neglected to take care of them. She wanted to live in Kinpeng. Here, the garden is planted with camellias, which is also a way to express my thoughts. Qinpeng's steps were slow but very steady. There was probably nothing wrong with his health in a short period of time. Otherwise, at his age and status, he would never be allowed to walk around alone with others for a long time. When he came to the study room, Lu Chang'an saw an oil painting hanging on the wall and couldn't help but be fascinated. I painted this 28 years ago, Qin Peng sighed softly. Of course, the creation of oil paintings is different from photography. Qin Peng in the picture is already very old. Yesijin is wearing a military uniform and is high-spirited. However, Yechinayu can't see his age clearly, and his body shape is not as detailed and clear as the other two. There was a somewhat hazy feeling. Yesijin and Qin Peng had a feeling of passage of time, while the remaining person seemed to be outside of time. Many paintings and calligraphy works not only condense a person's energy and spirit, but also have a once-in-a-lifetime flash of inspiration, such as the Qingming moment after enlightenment, before a masterpiece can be created. Just like Wang Zizi's preface to Orchid Pavilion, if I had written it at another time, I would not have been able to write it. Lu Chang'an admired it very much. This painting probably means the same to you. I was a little confused at the time, thinking of Sister Jin and Yu. Qin Peng stood under the oil painting and pointed at himself. I am a little older than then. Lu Chang'an did not comment anymore, just looked at the three people in the oil painting. When humans learned to carve traces on sand, rocks, and wood to paint, Lu Chang'an painted his own appearance on the rock wall of the cave, but it seemed that until only after the invention of the camera did he have a truly clear and credible appearance left in the world. Even so, there are very few of them. There is probably a little in the files of Hunan University, but the identity of Yechinayu is only recorded here by Qin Peng. I heard that you have a girlfriend who is 18 years old. Qin Peng looked at Lu Chang'an with a faint smile. Even Lu Chang'an has embarrassing moments. Yes, he is the same age as me. Lu Chang'an nodded as usual. Embarrassment is just a state of mind and does not necessarily show. Qin Peng raised his head and laughed. Don't be like this, you'll burp later. Lu Chang'an feigned anger and helped Qin Peng sit down. Don't you know that for a man who is over 100 years old, he can be very happy and angry and laugh to his health? I have seen pictures of girls, and I feel that they are similar to Sumei when she was a teenager. Is it because of this? Qin Peng stopped laughing, but he didn't really think there was anything wrong. His brother was very ordinary. People naturally do extraordinary things. Lu Chang'an shook his head, not wanting to tell Qin Peng more about An Nuan. The Sumei in Taiwan is not Sumei, but Suzayakuai, did you know? Qin Peng was stunned. He raised his hand in surprise and signaled for tea. Then he realized who he was facing. He patted his leg and wanted to stand up, but Lu Chang'an pressed his shoulder. Lu Chang'an came over to make tea. Qin Peng took it with both hands and frowned, as if he was digesting the news brought by Lu Chang'an. Then he took a sip of tea, pursed his lips for a while and then said, I don't have much to worry about. I really don't know about this. Although the Qin family invited the Zhu family to come back to the mainland to invest, and Qin Peng also took care of the Zhu family's business in the mainland. Qin Peng and Suzayakuai often talked on the phone, but the two were already old, whether it was Qin Peng who went to Taiwan or Suzayakuai. It is very difficult to decide whether to come to the mainland, because people at this age are tired, and a small problem may lead to death. No one can bear this responsibility, and it may become a political incident. It triggered countless conspiracy opinions. Sumei may not be dead and is hiding behind the scenes. Sister May is still like this. Think about it, she was the only one who could make the decision to go to Taiwan back then. If Suzuki had made the decision on her own, she would not have had the determination. Qin Peng thought for a while and nodded. If she hadn't run away back then and wanted to take care of our old relationship, I would have to go and raid their garden in person. When you go to ransack other people's homes, are you still taking care of old friendships? The general trend is inevitable, and no one can avoid it. But I try to keep an eye on it personally, so that at least their family won't suffer too much, but I can't control what happens next. Qin Peng sighed. You have dissipated all your wealth and are no longer in the world. Immortal, Sister May is a more traditional woman after all. For women, family is more important than country. After all, she is not a heroine like Sister Jin. She also contributed a lot back then, and she also contributed a lot to raising funds for you. Don't forget it. Of course, we still define her as a patriotic capitalist. Now the Zhu family has unimpeded access to the mainland, which is the reward for that year. Qin Peng smiled. The third girl of the younger generation of the Zhu family happens to be 18 years old. Lu Chang'an just pretended not to hear him teasing his elder brother. If Su Mei is still alive, I'm afraid she will be old, otherwise she won't hide behind the scenes. Qin Peng knew Su Mei's character very well. She still thinks about you, and doesn't want you to look at her as she grows old. In her eyes, even if she doesn't know where you are, will you see her appearance? Not sure. Yes, I can't say for sure. Qin Peng nodded meaningfully, then looked up at the oil painting he painted. Lu Chang'an also followed his gaze and landed on the oil painting, and on Ye Sijin's face. Back then, Sister Jin and I used our identities as husband and wife as a cover to carry out our mission. Don't you know about this cover? Lu Chang'an turned to look at Qin Peng, and in an instant he had many thoughts and speculations based on this. I would like to recommend the masterpiece Night Player by the leader of kindergarten. It is a very interesting work. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 244. In addition to the girls in love, the fairies who always feel like they are fairies, and the bullies who say if your opinion is different from mine, you are wrong, you just can't do it, you are a jerk, normal people can accurately grasp this in conversation. Focus on the other person's priorities. There is no doubt that Qin Peng's focus is to use the identity of husband and wife as a cover. Anyone who pays a little in-depth attention to history and politics knows that Qin Peng and Ye Sijin are husband and wife, and Lu Chang'an is no exception. Lu Chang'an naturally knows about this relationship, but Qin Peng emphasizes that he uses this identity to perform tasks as a cover. If it is an ordinary thing, there is no need to emphasize it as an important point, unless there is a hidden reason behind it. Sister May drugged me and Sister Jin back then, and wanted me and Sister Jin to make raw rice and cooked rice. Who knew that by some mistake, you and Sister Jin were allowed to? This matter is not part of the reminiscence. Lu Chang'an interrupted Qin Peng's memories. Qin Peng laughed. In fact, for the old man, it is not very sad to look down on the memories after life and death, but it is a very interesting thing, especially when he sees the man who mentioned his fate to him and regarded him as his brother and father. The eldest brother's expression of embarrassment and embarrassment can satisfy people's mischievous mentality as they grow older. Many old men like to play tricks on others. Old men who like to play tricks on others have a good mentality. They rarely turn out to be bad guys when they grow old. Old men who were gangsters when they were young usually behave like elders who rely on their elders to show off their elders. Sister May was well known in Jinling and Huning. Even the popular girls in Shanghai assumed that Sister May was the eldest mistress of the Ye family. Who knew that she was wise all her life and did the stupidest things? He sent his fiancée to the bed of his most feared love rival. Qin Peng laughed. Or is this the reason why she is hiding? No wonder she pushed Suzuki out. Even if she hides, it has nothing to do with this matter. Nothing happened between me and Jin'er. Do you think I can be plotted so easily? You see, you are still angry. No. You look quite young, but you are still old and confused. Do you not remember clearly, or do you find it difficult to talk about it and just pretend it didn't happen? If you continue to mess around on stage again, you can go to the yard and read books for 2 hours. Qin Peng laughed again and shook his head. I listened to you, but I really can't stand it for 2 hours. You were so cruel back then. Sister Jin and I were so young at that time, and you could make us rain. They were also forced to stand in the courtyard. Lu Chang'an came back to his senses, looked at Qin Peng's old face, and laughed. There are talents under the stick. Children just have to be beaten, and they are not so easy to break. In short, since that night, Sister May felt guilty and generously helped me transport a wave of food and wages. From this point of view, what Sister May did was meritorious and benefited the people and the country. Qin Peng took a sip of tea and said happily, "Let's not talk about her anymore. Su Mei's character is such that she can be renamed Su Zhao." Then can you tell me now, where did you go at that time? Qin Peng was very worried about this matter. At that time, I felt that the war was almost over, and I was not interested in doing more to add icing on the cake. Lu Chang'an paused, thinking of Brothers Pai and Kiel. That summer, Japan's defeat was determined, and a man named someone from SLA came to me. She said that Japan's crazy resistance in Okinawa and other places resulted in a large number of Allied casualties. The US military formulated the Crown and Olympic operation plans. In order to force Japan to surrender as soon as possible, Truman decided to drop atomic bombs on Japan. She asked me what I thought. We didn't want to see what an atomic bomb would look like when it exploded, so we went. Nikola Tesla? No, this person died in 1943. Qin Peng thought about it carefully. Many memories have been blurred into pieces, but some things that seem to be knowledge and common sense are not easy to forget. Qin Peng naturally knew about the famous Tesla. In the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China, when listening to reports from some returning or overseas scholars, Qin Peng often heard Tesla's name. No, the Tesla that found me was a woman. We watched the atomic bomb explosion in Hiroshima together. She wanted to go closer to see it, and she was probably killed. Anyway, I never saw her again. Lu Chang'an's mind came to mind. A red-haired woman wearing a long black English skirt and diagonal striped shirt appeared, wearing a tall men's hat. She knew such a secret operation in advance, so her identity must be very unusual. Truman was not informed of the atomic bomb plan until after he took office. Qin Peng's remaining eyebrows twitched. In the past half-century, Hiroshima has they are actually trying their best to build the so-called City of Peace. I remember that at that time, Hiroshima was the base camp of the Japanese Army, the headquarters of the Second Army of the Japanese Home Defense Force, and the location of the military control area. Generations of Japanese troops, in those so-called peace-loving and anti-war citizens of Hiroshima, lined the streets to see him off. From the Qing dynasty to the Republic of China, haha, it is true that there are no innocent souls under the atomic bomb. In Qin Peng's eyes, if China at that time had an atomic bomb to end the war, it would have been dropped on Hiroshima first. Later, I traveled around Japan and saw post-war Japan. After living there for a while, I returned to the mainland. After you returned to the mainland and heard the news of Sister Jin's sacrifice, you must have blamed me for not taking good care of her, so you kept your name anonymous. That's true, and that's not the case. Lu Chang'an didn't want to mention it again. When Sister Jin and I were on a mission, the fellow villagers who were hiding sacrificed their lives to protect us. Later, we found the child they had hidden in the earthkill of the fellow villagers' home. We decided to adopt this child, who is the eldest son of our family. The eldest son is he wanted to make a living and sacrifice his life for the country. Now his son is in southern Hunan and I didn't let him disturb you. Qin Peng put down the teacup, squinted his eyes and opened them again. You want to tell me now that Qin Yanan is Jin'er? Lu Chang'an's reaction was not so slow. There were already many suspicious things in Qin Peng's words. Qin Peng looked up at the oil painting on the wall. Yesijin's image in the painting had been fixed. You have to ask Yatter yourself this question. Ask her. Lu Chang'an thought of Qin Yanan sleepwalking that night. I guess you have noticed something special about that coffin. Qin Peng thought for a while. Both Yatter and Sister Jin are deeply involved with that coffin. Yes, that coffin is like a time and space channel. One end is connected to Qin Yanan, and the other end is connected to Jin'er. You're right. This coffin even made me doubt ghosts and gods. Having believed in Marxism and materialism all his life, Qin Peng's suspicion at this time was not that ghosts and gods did not exist, but that he began to doubt the existence of ghosts and gods. Doubt that ghosts and gods exist. It depends on how you define ghosts and gods. If they are different from ordinary people, they are considered ghosts and gods. Then I am also a ghost and god. You are my brother, that's the definition, nothing else. Qin Peng's eyes were full of admiration, but the appearance of the two people reversed the actual seniority, but it felt like the elder was gratified by the younger generation. Lu Chang'an touched Qin Peng's head. Qin Peng was a little dumbfounded, but he burst out laughing. His brother was really an extraordinary person, he could do as he pleased. He didn't care that his girlfriend was only 18 years old, nor that the brother in front of him was already a centenarian. Qin Peng, when Yesijin was a child, he always liked to touch his head to show his closeness. This coffin is also related to the mission that Sister Jin performed. But at that time we got the news that the Japanese had been looking for that coffin since the Sino-Japanese War. In the past, they had blatantly robbed tombs among the majestic mountains and rivers. Beside the lake and sea, they wanted to search the entire Central Plains. Especially when the war of aggression against China was completely defeated, their search became more urgent and frantic. Although Sister Jin did not know the specific location of the coffin, the three Japanese she was following, but people already have clues. Qin Peng continued. There seem to be many people who know about this coffin, but I am ignorant, Lu Chang'an said, not too surprised. This world seems small in the eyes of modern people, but 100 years ago, we had to go around in this world. Even if there are many high-speed means of transportation, it does not mean that we can know what we see all over the world conveniently and instantly. The real psychological factor that makes the world seem small comes from the internet, which is countless times faster than the fastest mode of transportation. After Sister Jin died, the three Japanese had no time to search for the coffin based on clues. However, they did not return to the army. Instead, they chose to hide in the local mountains and forests after liberation, and until the 1970s, they just left the mountains and forests because of the international situation at that time. We chose not to hold war criminal trials on them and were taken back by the Japanese. Qin Peng looked indifferent. Sometimes the attitude shown by this country is really too friendly. However, there are not many nations and countries in the world that can match this kind of friendliness and tolerance, so it seems a bit out of place and dull. But you finally got the specific address of Jin'er's sacrifice from them, right? What Qin Peng said is not new, even Lu Chang'an knew it, because these things have been disclosed. Yes, one of these three Japanese wrote an autobiography, Never Surrender, My 30 Years' War. From this we learned that it was the three of them who buried Sister Jin alive. Qin Peng lightly pointed his finger. Trembling, pointing at Yesijin on the wall, based on various clues, I found her true resting place and learned her true whereabouts. There is the coffin nearby where she is. Lu Chang'an squinted his eyes. After so many years, neither Qin Peng nor Lu Chang'an, as the people closest to Yesijin, could pursue anything anymore. Talking about those years, the anger is still there, but Lu Chang'an has grasped the most important thing. Compared with the anger, the fact that Yesijin's ending has been rewritten is obviously more important. Qin Peng nodded. The coffin saved her. So what you found from that place was not only the coffin, but also Yesijin. She lost her memory and became Qin Yanan. Lu Chang'an tried his best to speculate reasonably, but such speculation still made him unbelievable. But Qin Yinan has known Zhu Huntang since he was a child. Qin Yinan is a child who grew up normally. Qin Peng did not comment on Lu Chang'an's speculation and just said to himself, I went there myself and dug all over that area, but I only found this coffin. At that time, I thought that the Japanese had lied to me, until when I came across the coffin, I was sure that Sister Jin was in this coffin. You must have seen something when you encountered the coffin. Lu Chang'an did not say that Shang Guandandan was clearly in the coffin. The various situations this magical coffin would cause cannot be inferred based on common sense. Qin Peng nodded, but did not say what he saw. So is Ye Saijin still in the coffin now? Lu Chang'an opened the coffin. There was a little girl in the coffin who had been reading online novels all night. However, it would not be surprising to say that there is still room for another person. He didn't have any careful logical reasoning for this question, he just asked it casually. Of course he's gone. Qin Peng still looked at Ye Saijin in the oil painting. I transported the coffin back to my hometown. I studied it over and over again, but I couldn't find any way. No one could determine the specific year of this coffin. I just thought of it later. Since it turns out that the Japanese have been searching for this thing, or they have clues, then the 3 Japanese died suddenly. 3 people died suddenly together. If you hadn't told me, I would have thought it was you. Lu Chang'an was calm. There was nothing to be impatient about until now. Qin Peng would always clarify Ye Saijin's situation and whereabouts. Of course these 3 Japanese are not the masterminds of their plans since the Sino-Japanese War. As for why they tried their best to search for this coffin at that time, it is impossible to investigate because of the various conditions in Japan after the war. I sent people to investigate. Until now, there is no result. Qin Peng didn't seem to care very much. Until 1992, on Sister Jin's birthday, I wanted to pay homage to her. When I came to the room where the coffin was placed, I saw the baby wrapped in silk lay on the coffin. Sometimes there are things that make you feel that no matter how long you live, the mysteries of this world are endless. For example, the Big Bang, the birth of galaxies, the gestation of stars, dark matter and dark energy, antimatter, quantum correlation, etc. Such as this coffin. This baby who appeared on the coffin out of thin air looks more and more like Jinner when she was a child. You know that she is probably Ye Saijin, but you can't be sure, so you have to let your eldest grandson adopt her. When she grows bigger and bigger, she will be completely like her. Jinner looked the same, and you were sure that she was Ye Saijin, and then you sent her to me. Do you have to arrange this marriage for me? Lu Chang'an had already understood. As expected, the answers to many doubts lay with Qin Peng. If he were in Junsha, how could he have guessed the truth based on his own speculation and the clues on Qin Yinan's body? Of course, the autistic little girl should know something, but do you expect her to take the initiative to tell Lu Chang'an? Then I have to use bribes like mobile phones countless times. Qin Peng nodded, that's basically it. Because Yatter looks like Sister Jin, no one would suspect that she was adopted. Even my grandson's wife once wondered if I was covering up for my eldest grandson. In fact, he was looking for her outside. An illegitimate daughter born from a dead woman. Qin Peng smiled. Actually, there is no direct evidence, but in comparison, the possibility that Qin Yinan is not Ye Saijin is probably less than 1%. Lu Chang'an did not doubt that Qin Peng had deliberately fabricated a ridiculous story. Many people seem to think that Qin Yinan was not Ye Saijin. Ridiculous things just subvert common sense. It is extremely difficult for many people to put aside so-called common sense to accept new things. But Lu Chang'an himself is a being who subverts common sense, so he knows very well that common sense is not completely trustworthy. My opinion is that she is Sister Jin, but you can no longer regard her as Ye Saijin. You can only regard her as Qin Yinan, because who we regard her as is not as important as who she regards herself as. Qin Peng said. Lu Chang'an nodded, it's a bit convoluted. The former Ye Saijin lives in our hearts, as frozen as this painting. but she is willing to live in this world as Qinyanan, and even the memory of Yesijin has been sealed away. We should also respect her, not we must wake her up and make her realize that she is Yesijin. Qin Peng tapped the rest of his hand with his fingers. That's it, brother, what do you think? I'm looking for you just to unify on this matter. Opinion. Lu Chang'an did not answer Qin Peng immediately, although he tended to agree with Qin Peng's view, but he was willing to think about this matter carefully, because for him, Yesijin was definitely not really left in his memory and gone with the wind. Just old friends. A while ago, Qin Yanan repeatedly sleepwalked, and she looked like Jinner while sleepwalking. I think in her subconscious, even if she accepted to live Qin Yanan's life, she still had unfulfilled wishes. Lu Chang'an thought of staying at Lushan that day. Referring to the scene in the suite, I told her about the history after 1945, and she finally got her wish. Qin Yanan never sleepwalked again. Are you sure she got her wish after knowing the history after 1945? Isn't it because she got her wish after seeing you again? Qin Peng looked at Lu Chang'an absurdly. Qin Peng can be sure that if he feels that he can communicate with the deep soul through the sleepwalking state, he will also excitedly and enthusiastically tell Yesijin what happened in these years. That is because he and Yesijin are real cousins and are together. Revolutionary comrades in arms, but the eldest brother and his most beloved sister are not just comrades in arms who once revolutionized together. What was he thinking? Talking about history all night? Is he really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Could it be that after Sumei's erroneous plan, everything can still be the same as before? Qin Peng took everything indifferently, and he didn't care about it even if he couldn't see it clearly. Except for his brother, he often couldn't take it lightly. Maybe it's both. Of course Lu Chang'an and Qin Peng had different ideas. He didn't think that in that case, it was necessary to stay together, do something and say something, focus on parting, missing each other, etc. emotionally. Feeling each other's presence and having a hearty chat before parting, there should be no regrets. It was precisely because he felt Yesijin's obsession dissipated that Lu Chang'an dared to guarantee that Qin Yanan would not sleepwalk. It's hard to ask him to stage a drama of love, the lingering love, the excitement of being inseparable, and the final heartbreaking helpless separation. Is this normal behavior in the eyes of normal people? Lu Chang'an is a very human being. What's more, Lu Chang'an also has his own reasons for behaving like this. It doesn't matter what others think. Mr. Qin, it's time for you to rest for a while. The old secretary's voice sounded outside the door, and he was inevitably a little resentful. Even if this young man was a junior whom Mr. Qin cherished, couldn't he be considerate of the old man's body? It is too tiring for an old man of this age to talk for so long. The older people get, the more they live like a baby lying in a cradle. They can't do anything and have to be looked after. Qin Peng said to Lu Chang'an helplessly. Let's have dinner together tonight. Lu Chang'an looked at the sky. You are not allowed to leave today. Qin Peng suddenly grabbed Lu Chang'an's arm with a solemn expression. Lu Chang'an laughed in surprise and nodded, but it reminded him that Qin Peng sometimes didn't go home after school, and being able to sleep on the same bed with his eldest brother at night made Yesijin very jealous. The old secretary opened the door and came in to help Qin Peng. He still looked at Lu Chang'an with eyes full of meaning. Of course Lu Chang'an didn't pay attention to the meaning in his eyes. Many people who have followed the leader for many years are inevitably a little spoiled and feel that they can make some decisions for the leader on certain matters. This is also human nature. The dinner was rich, but it was obviously prepared for Lu Chang'an alone. Qin Peng's recipe was naturally different from that of the guests. Everything was a little bit, and the amount and type of food must be strictly controlled. Qin Peng seemed to be used to it. Lu Chang'an asked him how long it had been since he had lard mixed with rice noodles and mutton head meat, and received a stern look from the old secretary. But Lu Chang'an still poured some wine to Qin Peng. The old secretary tried to stop him, but Qin Peng shouted and kicked him out. Xiaozhou is actually pretty good. Understand? After dinner, Lu Chang'an and Qin Peng walked in the yard. Lu Chang'an stayed overnight, and Qin Peng held his hand throughout the night. As a person gets older, the Confucian admiration in his heart from childhood is still there. Although his brother's appearance is completely different from that of the past, it does not hinder Qin Peng's close admiration for his brother as he did when he was young. The next morning, Lu Chang'an was about to leave. Under the horrified eyes of the old secretary, Qin Peng arrived at the door. Lu Chang'an walked far away and turned back, and saw Qin Peng still standing at the door, looking motionless, watching him turn back. And immediately waved his hands high, as if he was afraid Lu Chang'an wouldn't see him. Just like back then, only 100 years have passed. Lu Chang'an turned his head. This must not be the last time he and Qin Peng meet. I would like to recommend the work Revolution Goddess by the great god Kazami Bandit. The title of the book tells you that it is awesome. It is suitable for readers who like Xiaohua's works. It is a very interesting book. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 246. Since the birth of the earliest life, colorful life forms have adorned the earth, making this planet different. In the cold, dark, almost endless, and barren universe, there is such an innocent and lively planet, which can be called a miracle in the surrounding countless light years. It has become even more different since the birth of human beings. Although this is a creature that is born with self-destruction, compared with any kind of biological extinction that he has experienced, Lu Chang'an is more unwilling to remain in the infancy stage in the history of life. Of human extinction. Humanity had only appeared a few hours ago. Of all living beings, who doesn't love life? Love life to the extreme, and then love others. Qiu Jin said this. Lu Chang'an returned to Juncha at noon. Zhongling, 1,000 miles away, looked like this in one day. People can't help but look forward to things like the hyper-high-speed rail and intercontinental shuttles in the future. Dark clouds were gathering over the city today, and the weather in Juncha was a bit stuffy. The hot and humid feeling made people's skin feel sticky. Lu Chang'an got off the high-speed train and walked into the bathroom. People with rich experience rarely take everything for granted. Compared with the smell of the train station bathroom in the past, the good ventilation and cleanliness now make it possible for people to stay in the bathroom for a little longer without being intolerable. This is especially a considerate and civilized step for people who have difficulty in intestinal passage and squat for an hour. Of course Lu Chang'an was not constipated. He stayed longer just because he pinched his face and regained Yechinao's appearance. He originally wanted to see Qin Peng as Yechinao, but unfortunately now high-speed trains require facial recognition when entering the station. Yechinao's face is not in the recognition system, and every Yechinao's identity is used to buy him a ticket. So Lu Chang'an gave up. He had been in contact with Qin Yinan for so long, and it was impossible for Qin Peng not to know what he looked like now. Lu Chang'an left the high-speed rail station. With his mature appearance and messy hair, paired with the clothes and temperament of an educated youth, Lu Chang'an decided to go see Qin Yinan. Many things have no practical significance. For example, what is the use of seeing Qin Yinan now in Yechinao's appearance? Can anything be changed? Will there be something more worth looking forward to in the future? No. But when a person is alive, his or her mood is very important. Emotions are very important. If everything has a practical meaning, then it is meaningless. Lu Chang'an stopped taking the subway and walked slowly towards Lushan. After walking for a while, he found that walking from the suburbs to the city was more difficult than walking in the city because many viaducts and roads were closed and pedestrians were prohibited from strolling. And to pass through these buildings that hindered his walking, he had to climb over the fence in various ways. How many years have you been in the habit of walking and strolling slowly? Habits are the hardest to change, otherwise they wouldn't be called habits. Lu Chang'an raised his head and glanced at the camera, glanced at the traffic policeman on duty not far away, and walked slowly back to the subway station. Forget it, people who can change their habits are powerful. No matter what you say, he makes sense. Lu Chang'an took the subway to Lushan. The subway in Juncha always gave people the feeling that it ran faster than other cities, or that it took less time to get to the destination. When he walked out of the subway station, Lu Chang'an saw Lu Yuwang buying a cone, sticking out his tongue and about to lick it. Lu Yuwang met him once in the subway. He was a complete stranger and unfamiliar to him. Lu Chang'an thought this and quickly withdrew his eyes. Lu Yuwang was stunned for a moment, then dropped the cone in his hand to the ground. He was stunned and angry, as if he couldn't accept the fact that the cone he just bought couldn't be eaten. The reason was of course that he saw the person opposite him. "You can eat it if you pick it up within 30 seconds." Lu Chang'an walked over and responded to the anger in her eyes. "Can you blame him?" Lu Yuwang didn't speak, but took out his cell phone involuntarily. When Lu Chang'an saw her holding her cell phone, he habitually quickened his pace. Habits are powerful, and it is better for strong people to obey habits. Even after picking it up for a second, Lu Yuwang couldn't eat the cone. Lu Yuwang looked at his cone for a while and wanted to buy another one, but he was unwilling to do so. He obviously bought all of them. This feeling was very uncomfortable and even worse. What's more, after eating a cone, you have to dance for half an hour when you go home to burn off the calories you brought in. Only then can you calmly accept the envious comments from your colleagues. "Oh my, I envy you the most." No matter how much you eat, you don't get fat. When An Nuan stared at some greasy meat uneasily, she arrogantly mocked, "Want to eat again? Be careful to become a little fat man." But Lu Yuwang remembered that he had met him on the subway. Because of some things at that time, Lu Yuwang thought he was that uncle. Recently, her parents are at home, and Lu Yuwang is living a peaceful life. He is not in an idle and boring mood to pretend to be a young girl and chat with the uncle. When people reach middle age, their moods are really complicated. Lu Yuwang sighed for a while, brushed the hair in front of his shoulders with his fingers, and walked home with his long skirt swaying like clouds. Lu Chang'an quickened his pace and soon reached the halfway point of Lushan Mountain. There was a long line of people waiting for the cable car to go up the mountain. It is normal to queue for more than an hour all year round for the cable car on Lushan Mountain. However, the Scenic Spot Management Department is very smart and locates the cable car ticket office at the foot of the mountain, while the cable car ride is halfway up the mountain, separated by winding and towering mountains. No matter how long the queue is, you can't see the tree at the foot of the mountain. Naturally, you won't be daunted by the queue and give up buying cable car tickets. As for after buying the cable car ticket, I saw the queue was so long and didn't want to sit on it. What does that have to do with the scenic spot? Whether you like to sit or not, it is impossible to refund the ticket anyway. Just wait slowly, young people just have to waste your youth in the queue. Lu Chang'an slowly walked up the hill and saw a champagne-colored Bentley coupe slowly passing by. Even though cars of this level are not uncommon in big cities, the probability of crashing with this color and style is too low. Lu Chang'an glancing sideways, I saw that the beauty with long hair shawl and wearing luxury sunglasses, who looked like an internet celebrity selling bags, cosmetics, and clothes, was none other than Qin Yinan. Of course, things like opening an online store are just a joke. Qin Yinan's car was followed by a Maserati CEO and Ma Weiming's car. It seemed that the president of the unicorn company had come to Lushan Mountain to relax and gain some business insights. Ye Chennai beat Ma Weiming once, but Lu Chang'an still remembered this incident. He remembered that he had beaten others. This was the basic respect for others. How inappropriate would it be if you beat someone up and then forget about it when you look back? When someone recognizes you later and stares at you with angry eyes, you look confused. What an embarrassing situation. Neither Qin Yinan nor Ma Weiming saw Lu Chang'an in the crowd, and they successfully climbed the winding mountain road to the top. When Lu Chang'an came to the viewing platform at the top of the mountain, he still only saw Ma Weiming. It seemed that even though the car came up together, Ma Weiming still had no chance to get close to the goddess in his heart. The male courtship instinct needs to be respected, but Ma Weiming probably doesn't know that many females have a creature called brother around them, which is extremely unreasonable and dislikes everyone, and he doesn't respect any male who is close to his sister at all. The mating instinct of living things. Thanks to the generous reward called a giba, one of the alliance leaders became the leader of this book. There are more alliance leaders today, so I will thank you chapter by chapter. I just arrived in Sanya today. After eating okra at noon, I was going to have a liver attack. Who knew that the water in the hotel bathtub was a weird color? What a mess. And today's LOL Asian games, the code wording efficiency is not high, but I still have to continue the update. Yes, students who are cultivating Immortals will be pleasantly surprised. Those who are not cultivating Immortals should get up early and read several chapters. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 247. There is only one bodyguard around Ma Weiming today. After all, it has been a long time since the last time he was beaten. People will always relax their vigilance. What's more, Ma Weiming is creating his own image, but if he is creating a big if you don't have the image of a boss traveling around, forget it. The biggest boss in Shonen is his biological father. Just bring one person with you. Ma Weiming paid a lot of money to hire this bodyguard. After all, as a new generation of rich people, he did not attach great importance to the security of senior executives like many large companies and prepared a professional security department. When Ma Weiming saw the person who beat him with his head and head down last time, he couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth and narrowed his eyes. Ma Weiming can accept setbacks in business. This is a necessary psychological quality. However, being beaten with fists and fists is a humiliation that he has never experienced since he was a child. He has never done anything like this before. Mental preparation. Unless the person in front of him is dealt with, Ma Weiming's frustration will not be eliminated, and he will have a ridiculous feeling that his own success is not worth the fist of others, which will also make people confused. But he was not prepared to take revenge in front of Qinyanan and instruct the bodyguards to beat people in front of her. This was too disrespectful. Lu Chang'an walked to the edge of the fence to look at the scenery. The city's scenery is growing. It is different from the rotation of the 4 seasons. Except for the changes of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, it has the characteristics of biological growth, reproduction, division, expansion, aging, silence and death. Juncha is currently in a state of expansion and growth. It was once nearly destroyed. Few people would see the scenery from Lu Chang'an's perspective. Ma Weiming walked over and looked at Lu Chang'an coldly. Is the scenery beautiful? Lu Chang'an withdrew his gaze and turned to look at Ma Weiming doubtfully. You think it looks good? Ma Weiming continued to ask. Are you talking to me? What are you pretending to be? Ma Weiming suddenly became angry. He didn't believe that the other party didn't remember him. Since he was targeting him, he must know something about Ma Weiming, unless he really hit people randomly with his head and brains in his hands. Neuropathy. Oh, I remember, I beat you up a long time ago. Lu Chang'an looked at Ma Weiming. Do you want me to apologize? I don't need your apology, Ma Weiming sneered. If an apology is enough, then what are the police and power used for? I have no intention of apologizing. Lu Chang'an turned around, still looking at the scenery of Juncha. You just deserve a beating. I just did what I should do. Ma Weiming found that the other person was particularly good at teasing people's hearts and became angry. Despite Ma Weiming's cultivation, when he saw such a reckless person, his anger could not be suppressed at all. You don't dare to hit me here, do you? Lu Chang'an glanced at the private viewing platform of Qinyanan's suite on the side. Qinyanan was not on it. Actually, you don't have to worry about affecting your image, because Qinyanan has no interest in you at all. You're standing here, and in order to prevent you from feeling good about yourself, she simply won't look at this side. Ma Weiming was unmoved and sneered. This guy really came for Qinyanan. The toad came out of nowhere and wanted to eat the swan meat. The doubts that had been hanging in my mind for a long time were finally resolved. When pursuing a woman like Qinyanan, it would be abnormal not to encounter some obstacles. Do you know Rousseau? Ma Weiming frowned slightly. Of course he knew, but he was not interested in discussing it with others. Have you read Rousseau's Confessions? No matter how much you waste, don't you plan to go down the mountain, Ma Weiming said, looking back at his bodyguard and winking. The bodyguard nodded. The man in front of him was talking nonsense. He was just stalling for time, hoping to delay Ma Weiming until he left, because he was sure that Ma Weiming would not hit anyone in front of Qinyanan's house. Ma Weiming really wouldn't do that, and he really didn't have a lot of time to spend with such a person whose time was worthless, but he could find a lot of people to spend time with. Rousseau was an exhibitionist. He deliberately exposed his secret male characteristics and parts in front of women, or made various obscene gestures. At the beginning of the third volume of Confessions, he mentioned this matter once. After he did this, he was insulted by several girls, chased and hid in a cellar, and was mistaken for a thief by the owner of the cellar, and was almost caught and beaten again. Lu Chang'an looked at Ma Weiming and said, "Are these side scandals of yours just for chasing girls? But I'm not interested at all." "You just need to delay," Ma Weiming said calmly. "I mean, you are like a big heroic official trying to expose yourself to Qinyanan. What you are doing is essentially the same as Rousseau." Lu Chang'an explained carefully, "This man is really stupid. Implicit is indeed not an art that everyone can understand." Ma Weiming stretched out his hand and pointed at Lu Chang'an with trembling fingers. After a few times, he put it down and said, Okay, just show off your words. I will let you know who the hell is Jaguar." Being able to make Ma Weiming say dirty words regardless of his image, the bodyguard next to him also knew that his boss was mad, but he had no choice. The boss said that he must not take the initiative here. "But you shouldn't be like this." When Rousseau was a boy, he was extremely fond of touching certain parts of his body. He even praised it in the third volume of Confessions. He believed that this kind of behavior was the paradise for a lonely and insignificant youth like him. By relying on his imagination, he can get close to all women without asking for their permission. He can do whatever he wants and enjoy it as much as he wants. Lu Chang'an frowned slightly. "I suddenly realized that Rousseau is much better than you. He is so honest. You obviously do it. The things are similar, but they look like hypocrites and fake Taoism, which is disgusting." "Is he a wretched man?" Nausea. Ma Weiming tugged on his neat collar. Even if he didn't go into the business world, it was more than enough to be a young man. What's more, his current temperament and image were not comparable to those of a vase, but in this person's description, he is actually a wretched man. In this person's eyes, Ma Weiming's pursuit of Qinyanan so wholeheartedly was equivalent to fantasizing about a woman playing with a jaguar. If this person has a chance to get close to Qinyanan, I'm afraid Qinyanan will really fall for his tricks, because this person's ability to change concepts and talk nonsense is even too much for Ma Weiming. Wait. Ma Weiming's fingers trembled and he stepped back step by step, his face still full of bloody anger. "What are you waiting for?" Lu Chang'an felt that there was no need to waste time. "Stop waiting, you are so wretched, then I will give you a good beating first." Lu Chang'an grabbed Ma Weiming's sleeve and beat him. The bodyguard rushed over in a hurry, but Lu Chang'an kicked him away and was unable to move. Many tourists around took out their mobile phones to take pictures. Ma Weiming felt that Lu Chang'an's fists were like raindrops, and he could only cover his head and face with all his strength. Ma Weiming would very much like his image standing here to be secretly photographed and posted online by some girls. This is also a kind of image marketing. As a young rich man, if he has a certain degree of popularity and appeal on social networks, it is not a problem. Bad things. As an entrepreneur in an emerging field, although these things do not determine success or failure, you must maintain this keen sense of touch and discovery ability. But can being beaten like this have any positive influence? Ma Weiming could only regret why he didn't bring a bunch of bodyguards. Why did the people he called come so slowly? The chief bodyguard was completely vulnerable. Why didn't the other party care about Qin Yinan's opinion and dare to do whatever he wanted here? Thanks to Her Royal Highness Princess Nangxiu and her attendant Li Lu, who are number one in the world, for their generous reward, a new leader has been added to this book. Thanks to Zhishan for his generous reward, he has become the leader of this book. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 248. Lu Chang'an just beat Ma Weiming all over the head and it was over. After all, he is a gentle person, full of love and tolerance for everything in the world. He is a reasonable person, but it is obvious that people like Ma Weiming are not willing to reason with him. Lu Chang'an thought about it, and it would be more efficient to let Ma Weiming know that there is no benefit in pestering Qin Yinan. Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an left after beating the person. When he heard Qin Yinan's voice in front of the parking lot, he did not look back. Although he was used to his name, strong people are those who can overcome habits. Stop. Lu Chang'an turned his head with some confusion and saw Qin Yinan actually holding a mobile phone, as if dialing a number. Lu Chang'an calmly reached into his pocket, long pressed the power button, and then clicked on the top of the screen. The advancement of technology does not necessarily mean that everything is optimized. For example, in the past, it was very convenient to turn off many mobile phones and just press and hold them. Nowadays, a key on a mobile phone is often designed with multiple uses, which seems convenient but is actually inconvenient. Lu Chang'an. After Qin Yinan heard the unreachable notification sound from her mobile phone, she trotted to catch up with Lu Chang'an and stared at him firmly. A woman's intuition is really scary, and Lu Chang'an finds it unbelievable, but what is certain is that any speculation without direct evidence is difficult to make people truly firm. The more the evidence is conclusive, the more it means she is deceiving. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he still looked at Qin Yinan with doubtful eyes. Although he didn't know why Qin Yinan could recognize him, his appearance was different and his voice was different. Why should Qin Yinan be reasonable? Qin Yinan was stunned for a moment, and finally became unsure, but still stared at Lu Chang'an's face. This face was clearly recognized by Qin Yinan in the photo in his great-grandfather's study. Lu Chang'an asked again. Yechanayu? Qin Yinan didn't call him Lu Chang'an this time. Lu Chang'an still didn't agree, but watched a black Rolls-Royce Phantom coming up the mountain not far away. This must be the ferry in Bailong Center. Being seen by her is the real trouble. Lu Chang'an frowned and continued walking forward. Qin Yinan looked around, gave up chasing the person, and continued to call Lu Chang'an. Still can't get through. Zhu Huntang's car stopped next to Qin Yinan. Zhu Huntang asked Qin Yinan to get in the car. After Qin Yinan got in the car, she thought for a while and saw Ma Weiming's car driving over. She signaled Zhu Huntang to let someone drive. She didn't want to get into the car with Ma Weiming. Unnamed face to face. Why are you dazed? Zhu Huntang pushed Qin Yinan. Didn't you see the person I was talking to just now? I was playing with my phone and didn't pay attention. Who is it? Zhu Huntang shook the phone and showed Qin Yinan her customized filters and edited photos. Good looking, Qin Yinan gave a perfunctory compliment. Since Zhu Huntang didn't see it, forget it. Of course Zhu Huntang didn't take it seriously either. Do you think there is really the kind of disguise technique in this world that completely changes a person's appearance without revealing his original appearance at all? Chinyanan pondered. Yes, I have. Real. One of the four evil arts, Korean plastic surgery. The man just said something in Korean, which probably meant what's the matter, but this was definitely not plastic surgery. And Lu Chang'an has no money for plastic surgery. But Chinyanan just thinks that he is Lu Chang'an. If he is not Lu Chang'an, Chinyanan will not bother to care who Ma Weiming is fighting with. At most, he is curious that there is someone who looks 89 points similar to Yechinayu. Of course, there are still some differences between the photo and the real person. Yechinayu in the photo is gentle and elegant, but the person just now is not like this. His words and deeds, especially his fighting style, are exactly the same as his little cousin. On the one hand, I think he is Lu Chang'an, and on the other hand, he looks like Yechinayu, and Yechinayu is Lu Chang'an's great-grandfather. This thing is really weird. Chinyanan called Lu Chang'an again, just like the last time she saw Ma Weiming being beaten on the top of the mountain and called Lu Chang'an. She still had the same intention today. You have to ask him, even if you don't necessarily want to know the answer. You have something to do with Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang saw several India-led reminders on Chinyanan's call history. Someone beat up Ma Weiming just now. I suspect it was Lu Chang'an who did it. Chinyanan thought for a while and turned to look at Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang had made some ridiculous speculations about Lu Chang'an. There is no doubt that it was him who did it. Lu Chang'an is a cruel guy. He even beat me up. Zhu Huntang was so angry that it was unbelievable. It's a pity that she is a fairy who doesn't know magic, otherwise she would have turned him into a high-level Templar and led him. By the way, do you still believe that he knows Qin Shi Huang? Chinyanan smiled and remained calm, as usual, casually teasing. I told you, don't mention it, don't mention it. Zhu Huntang hit Chinyanan on the shoulder, his cheeks turned red. I thought he was Yechinayu. Chinyanan grabbed Zhu Huntang's fist, her heart skipped a beat, and she continued to ask, did he admit that he was the one at that time? I didn't directly say that he was it, but he didn't object either. Instead, he used Yechinayu's identity and tone to rely on his elders and continue to fool me and talk nonsense. I even called him grandpa. This was simply a shame and humiliation. Zhu Huntang was indignant. Angry, imitating Chinyanan's angry look, he raised his hand and pressed his chest. Call me grandpa. Your seniority is wrong. Smooth. Chinyanan laughed and gently hugged Zhu Huntang's shoulders. Can you tell me about the things he did when he was relying on his elders? You must have been fooled, right? Zhu Huntang has become very rational now, no longer thinking wildly, and said angrily, this guy must have done magic in front of you again, right? Did he change his face or something? It's you, the disguise technique you just mentioned. Absolutely. Chinyanan had to make Zhu Huntang resonate. Let me tell you, it wouldn't be surprising if Lu Chang'an knew the art of disguise. Did he come in front of you in disguise of someone else and deceive you? You must not be fooled. Zhu Huntang took out his phone and found a picture photo of Lu Chang'an. Look at him, he smiles like a harmless person. The more this kind of person is, the more hypocritical he is, and he does all kinds of evil behind his back. Chinyanan couldn't help but smile. Zhu Huntang's resentment towards Lu Chang'an was deep enough, but was Lu Chang'an really the one who deceived Zhu Huntang? Unbelievable things have happened to him. Chinyanan no longer has the same views on things like Lu Chang'an's acquaintance with Qin Shi Huang as Zhu Huntang does now. Chinyanan glanced at Lu Chang'an's photo again, took the phone from Zhu Huntang, and looked at it carefully. He zoomed in with 2 fingers, zoomed in, and zoomed in until there were only Lu Chang'an's eyes on the screen. What are you looking at? Zhu Huntang was confused, looking at Lu Chang'an's eyes on the screen, pursed his lips, and hummed a song. Look at this man, his eyes always look like a bad guy. Yes, even if it is plastic surgery, I have never heard anyone say that it can change the eyeballs and pupils, no matter how disguised it is. Unless you wear contact lenses, your eyes cannot be changed. This book is not a mask novel. It is just that after the male protagonist changed his face, the female protagonist still had an ambiguous and intimate relationship with the male protagonist without knowing it was the male protagonist. That was the poisonous point. I was not happy to be imitated by this book 10 years ago. The Book of Wu's works was turned upside down. After the male protagonist changed his face, the female protagonist had a relationship with the male protagonist who changed his face without knowing it. It was so poisonous that I still remember it. So I won't do this kind of thing, but some readers with a soft heart feel that the heroine cannot have contact with anyone of the opposite sex except the hero, so there is nothing I can do about it. Thanks to Wang Xiaomo and Wang Fiza for becoming another alliance leader in this book. Really, the names of these alliance leaders make me swoon and don't want to show my face. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 249. Qin Yanan already had a plan in mind and was not impatient. After arriving in Junxia, her life gradually became interesting. If you think about it carefully, your life for the past 20 years has been pampered and filled with the leisure and arrogance of the new generation of wealthy people. However, you always have a feeling of being confused and unwilling to integrate, and you always seem to feel that your life should not be like this. Where does this feeling come from? Or maybe it was related to Yesijin, Qin Yanan didn't know. Sometimes she would think that the various conditions that happened to her body were not necessarily just because of the coffin. In short, since I came to Junxia, this feeling of being difficult to integrate has been impacted by someone's interesting and free-spirited appearance. Sometimes I really envy Lu Chang'an's mentality and living conditions, which is like living in an ordinary life. In this world, you are unruly, don't care about what others care about, you just follow your heart, and you feel like you are living in your own world, enjoying yourself and doing your own things. There is the aesthetics of life in the lonely state. Or at this point, I have some similarities with Lu Chang'an, so I get along pretty well with him, who I think is my little cousin. I didn't pay attention before and just thought he was talking nonsense, but doubts began to grow in my heart. Unlike Zhu Huntang, he didn't think Lu Chang'an could do magic. What he said casually before became supporting evidence for his doubts today. South of Ajat, I will not be arrogant. I just happen to know the person who named you, and I know the origin of your name. Old friends for many years. When they met for the first time, he said these words. Qin Yanan was very angry at that time and thought he was too frivolous. I will take care of his precious great-granddaughter. When he said this, Qin Yanan was very unhappy. Just thinking about it now, he probably really wanted to take care of her, so when she was almost collapsed due to sleepwalking, he would come outside her room and stay awake all night long. I have a very good relationship with the Qin family and the Ye family, especially your great-grandmother and I are very close. Yesijin's parents died early, and only his half-brother Yechinayu is a close relative. Besides Yechinayu and his great-grandfather, who else can say that he is very close to Yesijin? Even if Lu Chang'an had an identity that made him think he was Yechinayu's great-grandson, it would be impossible for him to say that he was close to an old aunt he had never met. I will compile a letter and send it to Qin Pen to explain that this will never happen, so you can rest assured. When he guessed that his great-grandfather wanted to marry him, his reaction was to refuse without hesitation. Qin Yanan was also unwilling at the time, but he was more decisive than her. Qin Yanan even wondered if he disliked her for being too ugly. Well, now that I think about it, I am determined not to be so ugly that he cannot accept it, but for other reasons. He said that he has a girlfriend, but Qin Yanan feels that other reasons are more important. Many times, when talking about Yesijin, he is full of an incomprehensible defense. That day Ma Benwei came to him and teased Qin Yanan. Lu Chang'an beat Ma Benwei. What he said afterwards was, he said it was just because of your face looks too much like Yesigen. I don't like others to take advantage of it. This face says vulgar and obscene things. At that time, Qin Yanan felt extremely weird. Now thinking about it, this was probably the same reason why Ma Weiming was beaten. He didn't like Ma Weiming pestering a woman who looked exactly like Yesigen in his eyes. It's all because of Yesigen. Qin Yanan felt a little uncomfortable, but it was not time to care about it at this time. Think about it. When you first saw Ma Weiming being beaten, why did you suspect that Lu Chang'an was the one who beat him? It's because I already have all kinds of doubts and details that I care about. So the so-called intuition is actually a conclusion drawn from clues obtained through inadvertent observation and logical reasoning that is not rigorous and clear. It was precisely because of Lu Chang'an's inappropriate remarks in the past that Qin Yanan made the discovery today. Qin Yanan listened to Zhu Huntang talk about how Lu Chang'an pretended to bully the innocence of fairies, and felt that there was at least an 80% chance that Lu Chang'an was his great-grandfather Yechinayu. If I ask him directly, he probably won't admit it, so I just need to see Yechinayu again, take a high-definition photo, and compare his eyes. Zhu Huntang leaned into Qin Yanan's arms while talking, feeling very comfortable. By the way, I will start school next semester. You can help me find a student union president. I want to be tyrannical in the school. If you go to a private self-study school, I have no problem with it. Hunan University should forget it. I want to live and work here. Are you the president of the student union? I will clean up the mess for you then. I have nothing else to do. Qin Yanan disagreed absently. What? I, the eldest daughter of the Zhu family, can't even be the president of the student union of the school. Zhu Huntang was very unconvinced. Last time I told your dad that I wanted to be a high official like him in the future, but he didn't encourage me. Because my dad likes you very much and thinks you are silly and cute. Maybe he is encouraging you to come back to Taiwan to run for election. This is very suitable for you and your level is probably about the same. Qin Yanan came back to his senses and did not think about Lu Chang'an anymore. The relationship with Yechinayu, she was almost sure of it. When she had some free time, she would carefully sort out everything in her memory. My cuteness is not because I am stupid. I usually keep a low profile and don't want to express myself. I pretend to be smart. After all, in such a big family, stupid people are easier to get along with. Zhu Huntang said nonchalantly. As for election is what Zhu Changji does, Zhu Huntang has no interest in it. You do what you want. Qin Yanan pushed Zhu Huntang away and got out of the car. Hurry up, Zhu Huntang urged. She was here to pick up Qin Yanan. She wanted to see the difference between doing funerals locally and in Taiwan. This kind of thing, which is likely to be extremely boring, must of course be brought along. Qin Yanan went to Bailong Center to play again. Qin Yanan nodded and dialed Lu Chang'an's phone number again, but still there was no answer. Lu Chang'an had already reached the foot of Lushan Mountain, and unknowingly walked into the middle of Hunan University, leaning against a green cypress. Cypresses is a tree in the Cypressaceae family, which can reach a height of 30 or 40 meters. It is mainly distributed in mainland China, Taiwan, and North America. The tree Lu Chang'an is leaning on is more than 30 meters tall and is very old. This tree was here when Lu Chang'an was still Professor Lu of Hunan University. Lu Chang'an saw Qin Yanan just now, and he didn't go to sort out or examine his emotions. He just wanted to see her, as long as he saw her. There was no excitement and venting after discovering the truth, hugging her into her arms and crying sadly, or using dozens of complex emotions in her eyes to express the atmosphere that should be present at this moment. Only little fairies would think that there is extremely arrogant laughter in other people's eyes. When there are too many emotions, in fact, the eyes often only express the meaning of "I don't know what to say." But, Lu Chang'an leaned against the tree. In her and Qin Peng's eyes, she was Qin Yanan and Yesigen, but in her own eyes, she was just Qin Yanan. Lu Chang'an hummed Li Zongshen's Mortal song and turned on his mobile phone. There were a lot of messages on the phone. Lu Chang'an smiled slightly. The little girl he hadn't contacted for a long time sent him messy messages again. It's really you. While Lu Chang'an was humming and reading the message, a voice came from beside the tree. Thank you to the Southern Cat King who came to visit me and became the new leader of this book. Thank you very much, I cover my face in shame. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 250. Lushan University Town is naturally next to Lushan Mountain, or at the foot of Lushan Mountain to be precise. In this small area, there are more than 120 national-level technology platforms such as the National Supercomputing Center and more than 40 ministry-affiliated scientific research institutions. There are more than 10,000 scientific researchers, 211 projects, double first-class universities crowded together, and more than 100,000 teachers and students. This is Lu Yuwang's territory. In addition, in this era of internet communication and eyeball effect, energetic creatures like college students are adding fuel to the fire. Lu Yuwang is extremely popular in this area. She is preparing to attend a small academic lecture. The lecture, which was originally unattended, was full because of Lu Yuwang's participation. Lu Yuwang is not idle either. The lecture is actually mainly to help promote and build a platform for a friend's project. Lu Yuwang is very optimistic about it and the department also supports it. He needs to create a very popular atmosphere. Her name and photo appeared on the lecture poster, and the effect became very good. Some college students were very busy, and some were very idle. Generally speaking, there were enough idle people. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors have basically returned to school. Military training will be held after freshmen start school. They will report on the second and third. Some freshmen who arrived early and are more active are also brought by fellow students and seniors to see the popularity of Shonan University. The tallest beautiful professor. Lu Yuwang likes Li Zongshen's songs. Although she didn't listen to Li Zongshen when she was young, this sentence more or less implies that she is quite old, but there is no way. She just likes the vicissitudes of life of the old man in the songs. How many men turn their anger into beauty? How many birds in the same forest have become swallows flying apart? When your lover disappears, who can you complain to? Lu Yuwang heard a familiar voice that he had heard today, and wanted to go over and have a look. The singer just hummed casually, but it was this feeling that made him sing out his emotions. Lu Yuwang leaned over to take a look and saw him looking at the information on his phone. These messages were sent on Lu Yuwang's mobile phone not long ago. Sure enough, when I saw him on the subway, my intuition was right. Although such a chance encounter seems a bit incredible, aren't some of the fun encounters in life so incredible? Lu Yuwang looked at him, wanting to observe, but his mouth failed to keep up with his thinking, and he couldn't help blurting out, "It's really you." Lu Chang'an turned around and looked at Lu Yuwang with a normal expression, "It's me, it's you. All the things in this world are natural behind the surprise." Lu Yuwang was stunned for a moment. What is this mess? Lu Chang'an turned off the phone screen. Is something wrong? Lu Chang'an asked. You're still pretending. Lu Yuwang almost blurted out, but immediately realized that his behavior was normal, because he didn't know who she was at all, and he didn't know that these messages were actually sent by her. Thinking of this, Lu Yuwang found it interesting and looked at Lu Chang'an solemnly. Are you the netizen and Nuan who calls himself uncle? I usually call myself the god of death. Lu Chang'an shook his head. He didn't call himself uncle. Didn't you just shout it yourself? I just saw the message she sent you. Lu Yuwang was still very serious. Do you know who I am? Are you Nuan's grandma? Lu Chang'an asked uncertainly. Grandma, Lu Yuwang was almost furious. Why was this guy's mouth completely different from when he was sending messages and chatting? When sending messages and chatting, although he often said some annoying things, they were basically directed at An Nuan's mother. No, she was An Nuan's mother. In other words, this person was talking sweet words to a girl he thought was actually very annoying when he usually spoke. Such differential treatment must be an evil intention. It seems wrong to think this way, because this uncle always defends Lu Chang'an when he speaks ill of Lu Chang'an, and firmly opposes An Nuan and Lu Chang'an breaking up. If he has evil intentions towards An Nuan, then breaking up is just what he wants. Grandma. Lu Yuwang was thinking about it when he heard another name and was stunned. I know some people. When they became mothers and grandmothers, they looked the same as when they were young. I thought you also had this ability. Lu Chang'an smiled. Lu Yuwang couldn't help but smile on his tense face, but then he stopped and remained serious. I found that you often communicate with An Nuan. As an adult, you often chat with a little girl. As An Nuan's mother, I have the responsibility to ask you to explain your motives and intentions. Lu Yuwang pointed. Pointing to himself, you see, An Nuan and I look very similar. I saw you last time on the subway. You must have recognized me then. Well, you are a little fatter than her. Lu Chang'an took a few affirmative glances, and Nuan showed me your photo, and her cheongsam almost burst. Lu Yuwang raised his head, his hair swaying. Goodbye. Some students were already paying attention to him, but Lu Yuwang was still very careful about his image. He didn't even carry his bag when it hit his face, which probably had a magnifying glass in the eye socket. Lu Yuwang took a few steps angrily and then turned back. Don't try to fight me, I can throw you on the top of a tree and hang you. Lu Chang'an said modestly. Lu Yuwang raised his head and looked at the cypress, and took a deep breath to calm down. For the safety of An Nuan, I must add you as a friend. Now there will be a friend named King Guifi Yang, whose avatar is like a butterfly. That's me, you're going to pass. Lu Yuwang finished speaking in a tone that could not be refused, then glanced at Lu Chang'an, saw him nodding, and then turned around expressionlessly. Hey. Lu Yuwang continued to remain expressionless, while responding to the familiar classmates and teachers who greeted her. She walked into the lecture class. There were also some familiar people who were concerned about who the man Lu Yuwang was chatting with just now. Lu Yuwang looked at the ambiguity in these people's eyes and couldn't help but respond with contempt and disdain. Why did these people think that she had a friend of the opposite sex who was just a bit ambiguous? Woolen cloth? Obviously Lu Yuwang just thought that this uncle was really knowledgeable and interesting. Of course, making friends online under another identity is just a hobby for women of her age. For example, Professor Ling has an account in her husband's friend list, and she pretends to be a female college student. Of course, he is not as easy as Lao Ling to look for trouble, he just thinks it's fun, but if he sincerely wants to make friends, Lu Yuwang thinks it's better not to keep pretending. However, he can only make the transition slowly. If he suddenly lets An Nuan when I got offline, I saw that he didn't look very enthusiastic. He might not be interested in chatting with Qing Wufei Yang all over the world like before. Thanks to Tian Ziun I's generous reward, this book will add another leader. It may not be available at 12 o'clock. If not, Xiahua will have 2 updates in the morning, tomorrow morning. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 251. Lu Yuwang didn't add it right away because she still needed some time to express her behavior of going to her daughter An Nuan to get her number, which the other party might guess. If she added it right away, wouldn't it mean that she remembered him? Number, or there is some direct way to see it, for example, she herself is An Nuan or something like that. 5 minutes later, Lu Yuwang submitted the friend verification. Lu Chang'an had turned off his phone again and did not see him immediately. He was wandering around the campus like a green town. The newly built inter-campus driveway used asphalt mixture. In Lu Chang'an's opinion, the color and structure of this material were very special. It's beautiful. If you look at it carefully, if you can cut out an area and embed it, as a work of art in the material science style, it will be more beautiful than many paintings with unclear meanings. Lu Chang'an walked for a while, then sat under the shade of a tree on the side of the road and looked at the asphalt road for a long time, the scattered dead leaves, the tires of passing vehicles, the girls' white shoes and half socks. Each picture was full of life. Therefore, in addition to speculation and money laundering, most of the pursuit of modern artworks comes from shallow aesthetics and the lack of the ability to discover beauty. The more people have aesthetic ability and the ability to discover beauty, the less they need to frequently participate in seemingly elegant activities to improve themselves and show that they can catch up with the temperament of the elegant class in this aspect. When Lu Chang'an feels lonely, his whole person will become quiet, like an observer of this world, or he will blend in and be inconspicuous, no different from the ants passing by slowly, or the falling branches and leaves. Until he saw a beautiful girl. She is tall and slender, and her slender legs seem to take up most of the entire height. Unlike many girls whose upper body is too proportional, even if they are tall, their legs are not long. Her waist is slender but has round movements. Feeling, perfectly connected to the hip line, there is always a feeling of jumping when walking, the sunshine and the shade of the trees intersect, as if the beauty is traveling in time. The two ponytails hanging behind the ears are slightly elegant and disordered. She fiddled with it casually, raised her head and straightened her fluffy bangs, and slightly raised the corners of her mouth sweetly as if she was remembering something. Then she picked up her mobile phone and made a call, with a somewhat annoyed expression on her face. Humming, I walked around in circles again, unlocked a shared bicycle, and pedaled through the tree-lined lanes, disappearing without a trace. Time has always been limited, and it is easy to say goodbye easily. Wine feasts and songs are indispensable. The mountains and rivers in our eyes are far away, and the falling flowers and wind and rain are even more damaging to spring. It is better to take pity on the person in front of you. Lu Chang'an stood up and stretched. How can a man relieve his sadness? Not Dukong, just a girl. Lu Chang'an found a remote corner, relieved his face, walked through the teachers' community in the 1990s, then walked to the roadside, and continued to walk back on the asphalt mixture that he thought looked good. I remember that 20 or 30 years ago, many asphalt roads became soft in the summer and felt warm when stepped on. There were also urchins wearing sandals running around on them, and their shoes even got stuck and caused a disease. Tragedy. Lu Chang'an returned home and changed his clothes. His things were mainly stored in the utility room downstairs, and the bed was not moved up. He took out his big oil paper umbrella and took off the umbrella. As a man, gaudy umbrellas were certainly not his taste, but the black and gray umbrellas were not suitable for giving to girls. Chinese Valentine's Day is coming soon, and Lu Chang'an is going to give Nuan an oil paper umbrella he made himself. Modern people celebrate Chinese Valentine's Day, because there is no traditional Chinese Valentine's Day atmosphere with girls as the protagonists, and there is no activity of begging for luck or worshipping the seventh sister. It has developed into a festival that is no different from Valentine's Day in February, and has been criticized by many so-called traditional culture revivalists. The opposition and ridicule from the communicators are actually just a sense of superiority attached to what they do. It neither seems noble nor interesting, and is even a bit stupid without knowing it. Nothing is static, and any symbolic meaning may change with the passage of time. Just like the Chinese Valentine's Day originally originated from the worship of natural celestial phenomena, and then the Chinese Valentine's Day was endowed with the influence of love because of the cowherd and the weaver girl. Lu Chang'an didn't care about this. Thinking that Nuan might care about the first Valentine's Day after the two officially got together, Lu Chang'an was prepared. The traditional oil paper umbrella is actually a very troublesome thing to make. Its process is very complicated. The traditional method often has 80 or 90 processes. This kind of product is not a work without an assembly line, but the assembly line means unified specifications and materials. Uniformity of shape, as a requirement for exquisite gifts, it lacks some meticulous consideration. The basis for making oil paper umbrellas is to select bamboo. Currently, if you want to choose bamboo that meets the requirements in Juncha, you can only go to the botanical garden with a history of several decades to cut it. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and decided not to do this kind of thing. It was not in line with the core values of socialism. Of course, the most important thing is that after choosing bamboo, the bamboo for the frame not only needs to be soaked in water for a long time, dried and polished, which is a process that cannot be completed quickly. Of course, it is impossible to choose new bamboo, so we have to use this oil paper umbrella made of bamboo material that Mr. Yechanayu carefully selected, and the species is now extinct as the basis. Mr. Yechanayu was once a financial giant, but when it passed to Professor Lu, he only had an umbrella left. Professor Lu is not that prodigal, just because he was in the national grain work during the public ownership system. He had no ambition to make progress after receiving food stamps, meat stamps, cold drink stamps and the like every month. All that was left to classmate Lu Chang'an was the vine box and the ancestral handbook. Umbrella. Lu Chang'an had no regard for the ancestral umbrella. As long as his little girlfriend was happy, he could dismantle the bamboo umbrella where Ihuang and Anvying shed tears. Just to use an analogy, this umbrella has certainly not been stained by the tears of Ihuang and Anvying. His umbrella was too huge and had to be dismantled and remade using materials. Brother Chang'an, do you want to light a fire? Zhou Dongdong ran over with small white airplane wings on his back and asked with great interest. Which of your eyes saw that I was preparing to light a fire? This one and this one. Zhou Dongdong took off Ultraman's mask and pointed at his own eyes. I'll grill Zhou Dongdong over the fire and eat it. I don't taste good. Zhou Dongdong was not very scared, because Brother Chang'an knew how to eat all day long. If he was delicious, he would have eaten him long ago. Do you know why I often make delicious food for you? Lu Chang'an put down his oil paper umbrella and pinched Zhou Dongdong's fleshy cheeks and asked. Is it because I am witty and brave? Zhou Dongdong said uncertainly. Of course, he was sure that he was witty and brave, but he was not sure about the reason for Brother Chang'an. Because you don't taste good now, so feed you more delicious food, and you will become delicious, and then I will eat you. Lu Chang'an let go of Zhou Dongdong's face. Zhou Dongdong turned around and ran away. Fortunately, he had wings today and could run faster. I'll make oil-soaked loach to eat later. Zhou Dongdong ran back again. Anyway, he is not delicious yet. If he eats a little bit more loach, it will definitely not become delicious immediately. This article fully proves that Zhou Dongdong is a resourceful and brave child, who wittily analyzed the current situation and bravely faced the terrible future.